They they probably will be there in the next day or two. And Michael, I mailed yours today, so you should be there by the end of the week. Let's wait a couple more minutes, Penny, before we get going. So far, I've only seen observers, no other varsity officials on here. One of the members of my evaluation committee and our one of our auxiliary board members, I'll call him Kevin Chin's on here. Make sure everything goes according to plan. So.
Good evening.
Hey, Suzanne.
Good evening, everyone. Nice to see you all. I'm so excited to hear you talk.
Me or Scott? Don't answer that.
Mostly Penny.
I can call Scott.
Good to see everybody. Well, Scott, you tell me when we're ready to roll, and I'm ready to roll.
Yeah, let's just wait a couple more minutes and then we'll get going.
Sounds good.
Couple of minutes. How's everybody doing? I mean, couple minutes, we can spend this time sharing a little.
Well, how are you doing, superstar?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm now joining the Evaluation Association. I can't
Way more fun on this side, I hear.
Hey, Penny, are we recording the meeting?
Yes, we are.
Okay. There was one thing in the chat that happened to come from my wife to ask if it was being recorded. So,
Yep. So mind your P's and Q's, everybody.
and one of the reasons why we're recording it is because the observers that couldn't attend tonight, they can go out and watch it once we send them the link, and then any varsity officials who want to see it and see what Penny's talking to the evaluators about can go see it if they so choose.
Sounds like a plan.
So we'll give it one more minute, then we'll get going.
Sounds good. Ready.
Okay, Penny, let's go ahead and get started.
Sounds good. Well, thank you for the opportunity to be in front of the group, and thanks to everybody for taking the time out to be part of this session. I know it's getting late in the evening, and I'm sure it's dark in the Pacific Northwest. It's an hour later here for me in Arizona. But you know, I think a session on this material will really be helpful as we head into the start of the season to get everybody on the same page. I love this program. I'm a big believer in it. I think it's really valuable for the organization, and each and every one of you is really critical to this process. I think it really adds to the morale of officials, as opposed to having peer evaluations and all of the rhetoric that goes along with that. So understand your role is really important, and it's really valued. And I just wanted to convey that. I know it was something that really contributed to my growth early on as an official starting out in this organization. And I'm happy to continue to be part of anything that I can find a way to be part of, to keep some ties to my Northwest people. So with that being said, I just want to dive right into the training. And if there are questions that you think would value the whole group, go ahead and either put them in the chat or put your hand up or unmute yourself and ask the question. I think while we're kind of in the content, that makes most sense. So we'll go from there. And I'm going to share my screen and we will get together here. All right. Get organized 1 second. Think you guys can see that. Give me a thumbs up. Thank you. All right. So here we go. I really love this statement about perspective. And it says, you should never be afraid of accountability. If you cannot prove the worth of a program or whatever you're talking about, then it needs to be re-examined. I think that's so true in officiating. And I think that's so true in you know, what we're doing with this organization as an observers forum. And so I really like that as we talk about ways to maybe make things better, how we improve upon our training and delivery with things. And, you know, we're going to have feedback that we're giving to the officials. We may also get feedback from them about our approach. I think it's really important that we take that in stride and understand that, you know, while people are sometimes sensitive, I think it's really important that we are, you know, have an open mind. And at the end of the day, we're all just trying to get better. And I think sharing that mindset, that growth mindset with our officials is really important. And I like to just start with that perspective, because I think we can always get better in whatever we're doing and just improve just a little bit. So we're going to hold ourselves accountable to some of these things and hold the officials accountable to a whole lot more. The evaluation form, for those who are coming back from last year, returning, it's the same form. We did not make any changes to that form. For those who have been removed a little bit, I know we've got a few people coming back after a little bit of a break from evaluating. We now have a new form, and we're going to go through each of these sections briefly. And for those who are now coming from the floor into the observer seat, you've seen this form, you've had it delivered to you, you know what it looks like. The first section, we've got 5 different categories. You can see it adds up to 5%. That means you either get a 0 or a 1 for each of these categories. You must put a score in each of these boxes or check the box for it. So since it's just 1 point, it's an all or nothing, but please make sure that you put a score in that, and you can read through the description and you know, do it honestly. Game management's 20%. There's 4 boxes, so it's 1 through 5. Those are the 4, you know, the scores you're going to put in here with a total maximum of 20. Makes sense. Pretty transparent about what it deals with. Now, if we've got a game that doesn't have a high level of difficulty, maybe there hasn't been any technical fouls or disqualifying fouls, any issues with the coaches, you know what, you can't take a deduction on somebody when they weren't afforded the opportunity to deal with those things. So be mindful of that and be consistent with your personal scoring and how you approach entering that information.
Hey,
Rules and mechanics.
Can I jump in real quick?
Absolutely.
So one of the things is we don't want you to put the number of points per line item or category at the game when you hand it to the officials. The reason we got rid of the old check boxes was all the officials would do after you guys left would compare, hey, I got the second box marked, you got the top box marked, and then pretty much the whole point of the observation went down the drain. So that's the reason why we took off the scoring boxes per se on the observer form we redid for the paid evaluators. So I just wanted to reiterate that.
Thanks, Scott. Rules and mechanics, we got 5 categories here, up to 15%. So that's maximum of 3 in each box at the end of the day. So it's a 1, 2, or 3, 1, 2, or 3 through that category. And then the court positioning. This first item is kind of unrelated to court positioning, but this was the best spot for us to put this on the form, the game difficulty. And if it was an easy game, they get a 1. If it was an average game, they get a 2. If it was a hard, really challenging, difficult game, they're going to get a 3 in that. And that decision was based upon, you're gonna have probably deductions in other categories if you have a really difficult and challenging game. You're not going to be perfect, so that piece, let's all make sure we're assessing the level of the game and the things that are presented within it, and that's where that goes. There's 6 categories here, again 1 through 3 in each of these. So just wanted to reiterate that. And then our last one, play calling, lots of categories here. You'll notice some of the boxes are a little bit bigger if we had 2 lines of text to describe it. So we just want to make sure once you're completed with this evaluation, before you send it in, that we have scores in each of these boxes, because that's our double check back to make sure we have everything accurate. If we have any challenges from officials on particular points, this is a great place for us to go back and reference. And if there's any appeals for the committee to look at a specific point that they're appealing, and now we can reference how that particular item was scored on this chart. So it's really pretty specific. For those that it's your first time seeing this, you'll get used to it. It takes a little bit to know where all the information is, but really the post-game stuff, the feedback you're giving them in the locker room is probably, the most valuable thing. I would suggest giving them the feedback, offering them, timestamps, game situations, and then give them the forms before you walk out the door. I think that would be the most appropriate thing. Communication. We've got 5 things here, deals with different areas of the game. You guys have seen this. So that's your form. You want to make sure you fill that out. You can take a screenshot of that, create a PDF, whatever you want to do, upload that. So I've got a copy of it. You can keep them all till the end of the year and send me a nice package to my address here in Flagstaff. And we'll get you guys all of these slides, so you have this information. You don't have to write it down tonight. But that's my email and my phone number. If you do have issues or concerns or things that happen, if there is conflict in the locker room, let me know about that. Just drop me a note and say, hey, this official, challenged me. We had a little thing. If I hear that from you, and then I've got to follow up, I get a follow up with them, then, I've got a little bit more of the story than being blindsided and hearing from them first. So that's the scoring system from the forms standpoint. Historically, we had a lot of creep with our scores getting very, very high, to the point that we had, hundreds, thousands separating people, and there was not really a lot of delineation. So we've worked hard over the last few years to get our scores in more of an appropriate place. So this, I think around a 90 is a really great score, honestly. Our averages, and this last year, we pretty much stayed right exactly the same. So I thought that was a really good job. I think as we start getting into 96s and 97s as a association average, it really becomes problematic for our officials. So keep in mind and keep some awareness to your scoring. And I do help you with that in our system where you're going to enter your scores. You'll see what your average score is. I don't know if you're seeing a lot of really good officials and they're performing well, your scores may be higher. If you're, getting some of the people who maybe aren't as talented, maybe your average score is a little bit lower. We do this interpolation, but you'll have this on your on evals.org on your homepage, so you'll be able to see where your average is as you're entering in your scores throughout the season. So just to have a bit of a frame of reference and awareness of that. Evals.org is the site where you will enter your evaluation summary scores. If you haven't been on the site before, you need to register. So you're going to click the paid observer button on the registration side, fill that out, submit it. I will approve you to have access to the observer forms. And then once you've signed in or registered and been approved, then you can sign in as an observer and access the site. When you're entering an evaluation, you're going to put the date in, you're going to pick the site. I believe we have all the sites in unless there's anything new this year. New sites, we'll add those. If you find that, something's not listed and it should be, drop me an email and I'll get that in there right away. But then you're going to pick the 3 officials that are that you evaluated in that game. Again, those people should all be entered in here. If there's anybody that maybe transferred, we need them to register. So hopefully that messaging has gone out to the membership when they meet. But all the officials should be listed here. You're going to pick the 3 names. You're going to press save. The order of these names will be listed alphabetically on the next page. So while I picked Federally Miller Augustavo, Federally Miller. So it went in order of last name. So just be mindful of that when you're entering your data so that you get the right scores under the right official. You're going to add up the total from that chart that the form that I initially showed you, and just the small subtotals for each category. And you're going to put those in here. The system will add those up for you. There is a minimum score that is allowed, and we will validate that to make sure that it doesn't go below there. So you'll press the update scores. You can go back in and make changes or edits as you need to until we get to the cutoff period. So you'll have that option, but that's the basic entry thing. We haven't changed that except to match it up with the categories for everybody. And then once you get your scores entered, you'll see the list, you'll see the scores listed, and there will be options to update or delete them once they're in there. These are sample data. This isn't accurate. Nobody needs to be concerned about what you see there, but that's the system. It's similar to what officials use to put in scores for registered officials if you were a varsity official evaluating. And then at the very, very bottom, there is a link to a feedback form. There's the officials have access to this. You have access to this. If there's something that you want to share about anything really, a concern, a comment. If you don't want to email me directly, you can put it in here, and then we've got a log of those items if we need to reference those again. So there's lots of ways to connect and reach out. Any questions on that part of things for anyone? Beautiful. All right. NFHS, this year they made one and only one rule change. So I think that's great moving forward. They made several editorial changes. We're not going to go into that. We're going to talk about the one signal that's been adopted. We're going to talk about one mechanics change, and then the points of emphasis that the NFHS has identified. And there are 3 of those. So we're going to talk about those, and this should be the same content that your officials are getting, and hearing it at their training and their association meetings. So we want to get you guys all on the same page, talking about the same stuff. All right, everyone's favorite, Fashion Police. The NFHS has reduced some of the restrictions on what's allowable when it comes to hair beads and barrettes. And, you know, these kids want to have their own little style and signature to what they're doing. And the NFHS has now allowed hard items, yes, including bobby pins, but bobby pins that are right on the scalp, things that are adhered to the head that, you know, don't present a risk. So beads that are tied up in on not dangling on braids, but closer to the head. So think of that item as this description. And the NFHS rule book talks about hard items, including but not limited to beads, barrettes, bobby pins, and other adornments in the hair, as long as they're securely fastened and don't present an increased risk to the player wearing them, their teammates, or opponents. And here's some visual aids to help us. And I know, guys, you're very familiar with all of the hair constraint stuff. This one here, somebody swings their head with beads at the end of a braid. That's a no-go. No, we can't have that. That, somebody could whip their head really quickly and hurt themselves or someone else. So that's the delineation there. This one, it's okay. They've said this is legal. This is all tied up in. It's not an extraneous thing. Here in this visual, not okay. And then in this one, there's an interesting style. I've not seen that. But they deem that to be legal because really short hair, beads are in it, but close to the head, that wasn't a concern to them. So I think historically, if you've been watching the media, there was an incident with a wrestler and whether a wrestler could participate with whatever he had on, and the referee forced him to not participate, and then the kid went off on the sidelines and cut his hair. Big problems for the NFHS. It's those kinds of things we really want to be tactful in how we handle them. Those things should go through the coaches, but just know that the NFHS has loosened their restrictions, and hopefully that makes the pathway a little easier for some of the official if it's something they don't deem to be concerning. The one thing I did want to point out, there's no color restrictions. So while headbands have color restrictions, things that go entirely around the head need to match the uniform. With the beads and those types of adornments, there are not color restrictions to deal with that. So our officials shouldn't be messing with those things. And this was an adjustment from 2 years ago with apparel and religious coverings, and this is now permitted by the NFHS. And again, for the same reasons, we want to be very sensitive to people's cultures, people's religions, and not really get involved with that. These items need to be attached, and now they're allowed to wear those hard attachments, the bobby pins that will keep things there securely. So just wanted to offer that as a reminder that that is permissive for players to wear. The NFHS 2 years ago adopted or went back to hand behind the head punching for offensive fouls and team control fouls. The WIA, WOA said, yeah, we're not going to do that. And they didn't adopt that signal last year. Now they've reevaluated the situation and said, the punching sometimes looks like counting the basket. We're going to go and standardize ourselves with the NFHS. That's our governing body. So now the WOA and the PNBOA will be using this signal for offensive fouls. So, it's kind of a throwback probably for all of us. I know I did that when I first started, and it was kind of fun. So I think our officials that work college will have a really difficult time adjusting to this. It will be interesting to see what they come up. Jeremy, he says, I got it already. But we want to make sure they're using the new signal, the proper signal. That is that's the standard for high school basketball. And that is what we are going to do when we call our player control fouls and team control fouls. So the punching signal has been eliminated in that instance. A new administrative mechanic. Lead is going to administer throw-ins up the sideline that are below the free throw line. So if we've got a throw-in here in this area, the lead will administer it. They will deliver the ball on a bounce pass to the thrower in. The lead will then focus on the players in their primary. They will not count the 5 seconds and they will not chop in time. It's odd, but I believe because lead does not have coverage of this line or the 3-point shot and trail does, that is that's the reasoning behind why the lead will not count 5 or chop in time. Now it makes sense for the lead to bounce the ball to the thrower in here, simply because the trail needs to be at a distance. There's going to be other players probably, setting a screen, cutting in this direction. But that's the new mechanic that is going to take a little bit of getting used to, I think, for some people. But that is the new federation mechanic for throw-ins. So the lead will administer that in 3-person. Just wanted to offer the reminder about sportsmanship and the fact that we can give a coach a warning, put it in the book, and it's not required that we give a warning if action is really overt. You can go straight to a technical foul, but this was put into place a couple of years ago. I think it's a fantastic tool to help diffuse situations and let a coach know they're crossing the line and becoming a distraction. I think it's probably underused by officials, but I think it's a really good one. So I offer that because NFHS has made their #1 point of emphasis sportsmanship. So we want to be able to deal with misconduct as it occurs. But we got to use the tools that are provided to help support us in those efforts. There are 3 points of emphasis this year. I just mentioned sportsmanship. The second one is reducing illegal contact. And then the third is the pregame meeting and addressing legality of uniforms and apparel with the coaches. We'll dive into each of these. So as I stated, this is the primary point of emphasis. #1, they only made 3 points of emphasis. I think historically the list has been 5 or 6 things long. They want everybody to know this is a POE. We got to get things under control when it comes to sportsmanship. They understand the issues with our officiating shortage and the impact that poor sportsmanship has on people not continuing to officiate. Their focus is to promote respect, integrity, and fair play. They talked about the need for officials to communicate with coaches. There's value in trying to build that rapport and to diffuse situations. And they also talked about fan behavior and that officials shouldn't engage with fans. I know we've mentioned that in the past. The right pathway to deal with spectators is to use the administration at the gym. That requires the officials to have a conversation with an administrator and find out who that game management person is so that they understand their role and their expectation. They know where to find that person if there is an issue that comes up. And I know we've all been in these moments, and it's really tempting to sometimes just turn around and offer some feedback to that person. But that's not the right pathway, and we really need to go through the right channels. Some of the things that the NFHS provided, we talked about demeaning language and hate speech. It really should be zero tolerance if something like that is heard. Often it's difficult to determine exactly which voice was made that comment. I think in that instance, we need to just let the administrators know, hey, I heard something very inappropriate from this area. If they can go sit somebody over there to, calm the situation down and hopefully the behavior changes, or they can identify the person. And often it's frequent offenders of those things. They may know exactly who it was and can deal with it, but those people should be removed from the gym, and it's for the game administrator to deal with that. Again, a little more on coaches. Just inappropriate conduct should not be tolerated. Warnings can be appropriate, but they're not required. So if something is egregious, they can go straight to a technical foul if it merits it. Things during a timeout. This was addressed as a POE 2 years ago. Coaches coming out during a timeout and using that time to berate officials. That's inappropriate. We want to make sure, as observers, we're observing all of that dead ball time. We can see that when we're there in person. It's a little more difficult when we're on film. We don't always get the right camera angle to see that action. They'll often pan up to the scoreboard when all the fireworks are going off. But you guys will be there. You'll be able to see that stuff. And I think that's really where a lot of the counsel and teaching can happen when we talk about those situations, because some people don't have those tools to understand how to handle those things. And you guys probably have a lot of experience and can offer some insight for our officials to help them in their development with that. When it comes to players, inappropriate language, profanity, even if it's not directed at the opponent or an official, needs to be penalized. They might be just letting off steam. We need to have an awareness of, hey, what was the volume on that? Was it just me that heard, oh shit, because I missed the shot, or did the whole arena hear the F-bomb because I screamed it at the top of my lungs because I was mad? The image of the game is really important, and sportsmanship is really important for the NFHS. So they want to get those things, that behavior, out of there as much as possible. And then, of course, those things should be noted in the sheet. And then, if there's something that's persistent, and I know many of you are going to go to the same gym frequently, let John Lindsay know, or let Scott know that, hey, there's a potential issue with this particular program, this particular team. So they've got that awareness of what's going on there. Point of emphasis number 2, reducing illegal contact. They tucked a few things into this number 2, but I think it makes sense. There's concerns about hand checking. That was the first thing they addressed. Concerns about post play, and then off ball with guard play, screens, cutters, and defenders. And let's dive into each of that. The context of this point of emphasis, they stated that many officials have developed their own interpretation or their own philosophy. And I think of that as applying to ball handler, dribbler, and they're permitted a hot stove touch, but 2 hands on, extended forearm on, multiple touching. It may not impact the player's rhythm, speed, balance, or quickness. And it may feel like a ticky-tack foul, or it didn't really have anything to do with anything. They want that called. That is, I can't bring in my own philosophy into this. This is what I'm expected to do, enforce the rules as written. We want to make sure we're supporting that. We want to talk about setting the tone early in the game, establishing some guidelines for what level of contact is going to be allowed in the game. And this item in particular is all over the map. There's not been a lot of consistency at the high school level with enforcement, and we're heading in a bad direction with physicality. So we want to address that. So here's a clip from a game last year in the PNBOA, and you can see how things escalate when it comes to guard play. So there may have been hand checking before, but we've got the dribbler actually delivering a blow to the defender and displacing him. And we no call this play, and that's not appropriate. This is a foul by the dribbler. So we should be given one of these this year when we have this kind of play. And I know most of their points of emphasis that they stated talked about fouls by the defense, but it can also be fouls by the offense. And we don't want plays to escalate into this kind of physicality, because that's where things really start to get more physical and out of line. In post play, in response to reducing illegal contact, one of their rationale about making this a point of emphasis was they're saying that the injury data is showing that players are getting injured in the post, and they're blaming physicality and the displacement that's allowed and dislodging. So this can be on ball or off ball. We want to make sure our centers and our leads, if they don't have ball responsibility, they're looking at the competitive matchups in their primary and looking for that displacement and putting whistles on those plays. So we want to make sure we're evaluating, where are their eyes? Are they looking off ball in transition from trail to new lead? Are they identifying the matchup, or are they, looking around, looking at the ball in the backcourt, not focusing on the players in their primary? And then thanks, Jeremy, for modeling this for us. So this is a back down by a post player. And while we may have embellishment of these plays, when an offensive player delivers a blow, backs down, delivers another blow, maybe they're only moving that defender a little bit, but the geography of that and them getting closer to the basket is a huge advantage. I'm sure Jeremy had a whistle in the next frame, and they didn't show me a picture of that, but this would be an offensive foul. So this is the kind of play that they're talking about. And I think this is a good visual as a reminder of that. And we want to, I think we too want to be really careful about what we deem to be faking or flopping. If there's illegal contact and embellishment, it can still be a foul. The embellishment doesn't negate what the offense did. And, sometimes players like to give us a little bit of help, and they embellish just a little bit or a lot bit, but it can still be a foul. That I think is a great point to share in your feedback as you're speaking with officials on these kinds of plays.
I believe that was in Referee Magazine, that picture.
It was. I'm still a subscriber.
Good.
It was in Referee Magazine like 4 years ago. Good pull though, Penny.
Hey, you know what? Y'all be careful.
It was in a recent one too, Jeremy.
It was, but not the full set of 3. Just one.
Just the one. Yeah.
Yeah, I might have to get you to autograph that for me sometime. All right.
No.
Let's look at this play. Play to the basket. Again, in one of our games last year, and you can see there's not verticality by the defender. He's jumping from A to B, goes into the shooter. We need to do a better job of just calling obvious fouls. And we talk about physicality and putting whistles on illegal plays. This play needs a whistle. And I think, unfortunately, our official here gets straight line, but there should be somebody right over here that could have also had this play. So, I think that stuff is really great to talk through. Man, just, perfect straight line right there. Hard to call plays when you don't have great looks, but somebody else has a great look at that play, and that's an obvious foul. Definitely illegal contact. offensive player goes to the ground and we have a no call and a turnover. We can't have that. We need to be better than that, and we need to provide feedback on these kinds of plays, and it's crew feedback. It's not just the primary official. It's for the whole crew. We want to put whistles on obvious plays. As it applies to reducing illegal contact on screeners, cutters, and defenders, a lot of this is off-ball coverage, so it's discipline to be looking in the right places. It's huge for freedom of movement. Our game is a lot better when we don't have cutters being rerouted. We don't have, illegal screens picking off defenders inappropriately. Those are the things that our officials need to focus on from a point of emphasis perspective. So I know there were multiple categories in POE number 2, but I think it gives us a lot to talk about. And ultimately, these games should not be that physical. And if you're in the stands and you're like, ooh, we should have had a whistle here. We should have had a whistle here. It's great to reference this point of emphasis and say, we had illegal contact that we didn't put whistles on. We needed to be better in this area, and then, give them some examples to support that. POE number 3, the pregame meeting, illegal uniforms, equipment, and apparel. This is a focus to make sure that our officials are still having that meeting with the coaches. They're verifying with the coach, and it puts the onus on the coach. Hey, are your players properly equipped? You have that. You're supposed to ask them that question. I know sometimes that greeting is a good old boys, a good old girls meeting. Nice to see you again. But hey, it's a formality. I have to ask everybody properly equipped. They vouch for them. If we can provide to them, hey, coach number 11, she's got a headband that's not the correct color. We want to handle all those player situations that we observe in the pregame with the coach. We don't want to directly address the players to those things. We don't want to start off our relationship with the players in that fashion. And this is the correct way that they want this handled from an NFHS perspective. So again, if you're there early, you're seeing the conversations the officials are having with the players, remind them that pathway is really through the coach to deal with that. And if it's the coach's responsibility and it's the 3rd game in a row, he's having to tell Penny to get the right headband on. At some point, he's gonna say, Penny, either come out here with the right headband on, or you're not starting tonight. And they'll deal with that so it doesn't become a perpetual thing. And that's why we want to work through the coaches on that. Any questions or comments on the POEs?
So Penny, all the officials know all this. It's on the state clinics that all the officials have to do to get certified, and they have to be certified to work a varsity contest. So it shouldn't be a surprise to any of them on any of the mechanics, any of the points of emphasis or anything like that. So if they look at you with a look of shock on their face, they're full of it. So that's my 2 cents worth.
Thanks, Scott. I think it's essential that our officials are fundamentally sound when it comes to the mechanics and use of proper signals. We want to make sure that, their signals are the same signals everybody else is using, and it's what's in the book. It's not, their own style and their own desire to do things their own way. We want to make sure our officials are stopping the clock on violations, including out of bounds, and then also getting their fist up for calling any foul. So, when they report to the table, it should be color, number, foul. They should be using their voice, projecting, communicating to the scorer. That allows the coaches and players to hear, that allows the partners to hear what the call was also, so that we have an opportunity to be consistent. So we want to make sure we're diligent in watching them report, watching what they say at the spot. That facilitates the game and how we resume play. You know, if you go and you don't say anything at the spot and you just start walking to the table, I don't know where to put the ball in. Are we shooting free throws? Are we on the baseline? What are we doing? So we want to make sure we're doing all those things and just, you know, being on point. Like, this is the stuff that is really valuable. And I know we have officials that work all levels, and the night they're working the high school game, they should be doing things the high school way. So I'm very supportive of officials that work all levels. That's great, but do things right. You know, they can be a great official, but if they're not given the proper signals, then, you know, we need to take deductions in the proper categories on those forms, despite their years of service, despite their street cred. Go ahead, take the deduction. They've made the choice to not do things properly there. Focus areas for high school mechanics. I just like to reiterate this. There is a specific reporting area. We want to get them there. They're not walking and talking and reporting to the table. Our scorers really need to get the information, and, you know, it could be a little kid or a parent that's never done it before. Get to the reporting area, stop, make eye contact, report the foul, again, verbalize. Want to make sure they're getting their hand up on all out of bounds. That's the Federation mechanic. The blocking foul, open hands to the waist, not the fist and the pounding of the sides. Those are the proper signals. We can help them reformat if they've forgotten what those are, and remind them of what's correct in that area. Shout out to Jeff for sharing his presentation on areas of responsibility. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but I do want to cover a couple of things that are provided here. So Jeff, this is really fantastic. And we're going to get you printouts of all of this as well. But terminology is really important. I think it's great that we all can talk in the same way and provide feedback in the same way. I gave a clinic in Minneapolis, and we were talking about lead rotations and closing down, pinching the paint, rotating with an accelerated pace. And official asked a question that was in the room, and he says, so now when the lead squeezes down, I said, hang on a minute, what's squeeze down? I'm not familiar with that term. Well, when they squeeze down to the lane, I said, you mean close down? Yes, close down. I said, you know, you're from Minnesota, I'm from Washington. We need to be able to talk the same way so we understand what we're each doing, and can be on the same page. So I like that example, but I think it's really valuable and so important that we all use some of the same terminology, and it's the terminology from the book. That's this terminology from the mechanics book. So there's a lot of little phrases here that I think are great, but let's try and use that as a great description for our feedback as we're giving officials. So lots more points here. Talk about weak side and strong side. We talk about administration, the bump and run. Talk about straight lines and open angles, and, you know, it's those kinds of words that they need to hear consistently in all of their feedback, so that they understand the meeting, and then they can start talking to each other about plays and continuing with that same terminology. It's really valuable. Court coverage standpoint, I think in all my observations of officials over the summer and the videos that I've seen, so often when we transition from trail to new lead, officials go to one spot consistently. Then a lot of them are just running straight down to wide angle all the time. Almost like there's a ditch over here in the sideline, and they, you know, it's the only place they can run straight to. You know, the ball should dictate where they should run to in transition. So if the ball is coming down the middle of the floor or opposite, you know, they should be running straight down to close down and kind of curving onto the court. If the ball is coming up their same side of the floor, their third, that's the one time they want to go to wide angle. this is so important because it dictates the timing of our rotations. If the ball is opposite, and now we are running out to wide angle initially, and now we have to rotate, we're 2 or 3 steps delayed in starting that rotation. And it's those plays that when we miss them, it's often we miss them back here in transition before they've ever happened because we just didn't set our crew up for success. That's something that I think is really important to focus on. We want to get strong side as the lead. There's no limit on how many times an official can rotate and the crew can adjust. It's 3-person. That's the point. We want to get 2 officials on the same side of the ball. So we've got potentially 4 eyes on a play as opposed to trying to referee things from the backside. And then with lead rotations, I very often don't have to tell people you're rotating too much, but the times we don't want to rotate is when our shot clock is under 5, when we've got an immediate shot or an immediate drive to the basket. Those are 3 times where we're gonna probably pause and assess and see what we need to do, as opposed to rotating when those things happen. But this is the court coverage for Federation. You can see the lead has inside the arc, below free throw line. The lane is split between center and lead. Trail's got all 3-point shots all the way down to the baseline. So, you know, there's opportunities for dual coverage, obviously, but this is the basic outline for our half court coverage. And then things for trail. Trail can work on the floor in the backcourt. You know, we've got pressure on the ball as it's dribbling up. The trail can be on the court. You know, I always say 1/3 away is a great spot. So, you know, trail's trying to officiate from the sideline and the plays all the way over here. They're going to be ineffective and probably not have much conviction to really call a play when they've got, you know, 50 feet between them and the play. We want them a little closer in proximity if there's pressure there. Trails, we want to make sure they're not bailing out on rebounds. When we've got shot attempts, they should be taking a step closer to the basket and identifying rebounders and assisting with those plays. Also, the trail can help with the footwork in the post. So leads close to the play, they're probably only refereeing waist up. In reality, the trail's got a great view. They can see the feet of the post player and pick up the traveling violations that happen there in the post. So couple points on trail. And then center, going C to C, their bodies should be parallel to the sideline. They shouldn't be running the same way they run as the trail up the floor, the same way they run as lead. Their position should be, you know, slicing through the court, looking all the way across the court. And that's the correct position for C. The home base for center is free throw line extended. That's where they should start. And they're going to position adjust however they need to see plays. But center is going to be responsible a lot of times for off-ball coverage. They're going to have secondary help on plays. You know, they shouldn't just be chilling because they're on the weak side. They want to make sure that they're still working. And if all the players are on the other side of the lane, they can come on the floor and stay more connected to those plays as well. And then our goals for court coverage, we want to be fundamentally sound with our coverage. I know there's a lot of variances when we've got drives to the basket and multiple defenders. We want to make sure we're helping and we're having whistles with the right kind of timing. If it is a help type of whistle, as opposed to, you know, a triple whistle on a drive to the basket because everybody's watching the ball go into the basket. We want to make sure they're disciplined and they're not guessing. So if there's a play where, you know, they clearly don't have an open look, the curl play that's going away from the lead, opening up to the center, you know, we want the center having the whistle if there's a foul there and not the lead guessing that there might have been contact. So those are some of the things that we're going to provide feedback on for our officials. And I want to show couple of examples. So this is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. I don't know how Jeff found this. It must have been a lot of time on YouTube, but there's this video that shows like 5 minutes of a game, and they change the court coverage visual on it as the officials rotate. This is so slick. But this play in particular, I found really notable. And I'm focusing on the center official here. And you can see there's a rotation, and the official recognizes the rotation a little bit late. It's like, okay, I need to get down to my home position. And they get down to their home position. It's great rebounding coverage. They're looking at the right spot. You know, this is really pretty good. And you can see their areas highlighted in yellow, kind of slick. Leads areas highlighted in red, and we see the trail. Everyone's connected and engaged here. Our trail's not bailing out. Pretty much have one set of rebounders, kind of dual coverage on it. That's great. And now we have a shot attempt, or a rebound and a potential shot attempt. Center's got a fantastic look. Watch what the center does. Takes themselves right out of a beautiful look for no reason. I mean, their open space for this play is right where they are, or maybe even to take a step higher. Why they decide to go low behind another player is beyond me. But this is the kind of stuff that kind of feedback's really valuable. Now, I think they probably end up guessing on this play, but they guess right. Okay, good guess. But the fundamentals of this are a little broken. So, you know, we want to offer feedback to these kinds of observations that we have. Couple more slides that are in Jeff's material, and there's a lot of text, but you know, if you need a refresher on the coverage and some of the basics, these slides provide that, and I'm not going to go through each and every bullet point here. But I think if you're looking for a reset, you know, if you do other sports or whatever, okay, now it's basketball, we don't have flags and this and that. This stuff was really good. I really liked it. And there's a lot of diagrams and pictures to support the content here. I do want to go through a little bit more of this video. Are there questions at this point?
Penny, I can send the Jeff Shelton slides out to the observers.
Great. I was going to put them all together with the recording of this session. And put it in
Okay.
a folder for everybody, so you'll all have that.
Okay, that's even better.
Yeah, I really like this this video. I can't say enough about it, and it was such a treasure to find that link in your PowerPoint, Jeff. And this is on YouTube, but I think it's a really great tool. From a fundamental standpoint, you know, we're looking here. We've got referee tossing the ball. We've got, you know, U2 opposite the table, and we should have a U1 right about here. So there's just some, you know, things you notice, and as you're watching games that you can give feedback on. Turn this off. But I really think this this visual is very helpful when it comes to our coverage and explaining how, you know, things change with a rotation. If you're looking for a tool to provide or something to give to officials, this is a great thing for young officials to see how the coverage changes. Here's where assessing press coverage. You know, this is what I talked about. The trail can come on the floor. The ball was entered on the opposite side. They're responsible for that initially. And if they're not seeing the center pick that up, good position, open look here. Could actually stay off the floor and truly trail the play. That's why they called the trail the trail. They should be behind the play. So he's getting on the floor a little bit early, in my opinion. Now, as that pass goes, he comes on. He shouldn't be looking at the ball here. He should be focused on the potential freedom of movement plays that could happen here. Could be have a cutter get held. This should be the focus. Center's in a great spot. We can't see where the lead is. All right, so now we have ball opposite, actually in the center's primary. Center hasn't picked it up, so trail's hanging on to it, thankfully. We want to see center pick this up. We want to see center pick. Oh, center just gave us the cue. He turned his head. Trail comes off of it. Trail could come off of that a little faster. We've already had the rotation. Adjust to this matchup here. Good signal by the lead. There's the play I showed you earlier. Okay. And then one on reporting. Good partnering there. Almost got to the reporting area. I can live with that. They stopped. They presented themselves. They had a clear lane to the table. Good solid report. It's basketball season. That's what I wanted to go through today, and happy to take any questions anyone has for me, any questions about the process.
I have a question.
Fire away.
My hand isn't, but anyways, okay, so I think where my difficulty is going to be is in the point of emphasis. And when we talk about two hands, but then we also talk about freedom of movement, right? So, when the guys are going at it and they're gonna touch each other, two hands, but let's say the kid's not having any problems with his freedom of movement. And then once he turns, if he has on him and there's no whistle blown, I would look at that more of a foul, but to call two hands, they're saying call two hands. So how do you determine which one's the foul and which one isn't?
Yeah, I know there's the mindset of let him play. Let's keep him out of foul trouble. The honest answer is that those things do have an impact, and ultimately it impacts scoring and their freedom of movement, their timing with their team's offense. A lot of offenses are motion driven, and when the timing's off, that player is in the spot, but I can't deliver the ball because of that split second hold, and may not feel like they were disrupted. They were probably disrupted. So that's the that's the guideline, and ultimately what we want is for them to get their hands off and to adjust and not foul. We don't want players to foul and be in foul trouble, and we don't want to shoot a bunch of free throws. We want them to have their hands up and to stop doing it. And I'll tell you, it's been something that we've enforced in women's basketball, and certainly have had its growing pains, but our scoring numbers are, we've seen the proof in the pudding with that stuff. So I think there's an awareness of a drive to the basket, and maybe there was a hand on, but you got so much else to look at. But when it's up in the perimeter and it's harassment and frustration and distraction, that's the piece that we want. And give them that feedback when it's overt. It's really problematic, not ones where, well, you guys missed 16 hand checks tonight, and that's not and nobody complained about it. If it's a thing that no one's complaining about, okay, but go out and set the tone, get the first one that happens, and then everybody will know what to expect moving forward, and they'll adjust.
Yep, I agree. Thank you.
Good question. Jeff, I see their comment about kids warming up with earbuds. Have they had any legislature or rule about having your electronics in warm-ups? Is that something we're to be responsible for?
In both academies this year, that was the main thing, is kids had earbuds. I know it's not part of the uniform, so we've told officials to not allow it.
Okay.
But I can tell it's going to be a trend, right? So we need to make sure that we're on it early and we're consistent on all levels.
It's a great point.
Well,
Huh?
wouldn't we want to get the WIAA on the same page?
I don't know if they know of it yet. To be honest, they don't come out and watch basketball as much as they should.
Well, I think the process there too is to just, hey, let the coach know this isn't part of the uniform. They need to
Correct.
not be wearing that during warm-ups. Probably
Hey-
something we'll see at the beginning of the season, but if we handle it properly, we won't have to deal with it later in the year.
Correct. Hey, Penny, one thing that I'd like for you to address, and this is a tough one, is the consistency in scoring. I know we're going to have officials that don't care if they get docked points for not using the proper player control or team control signals.
Mhm.
And I was talking earlier about everybody needs to remember what gym they're in for the night, but it's really crucial. I know sometimes we have scoring differences between the south end, the central, and the north end observers, right? But we need to be on the same page when it comes to signals. If they're not using the proper mechanics, we need to be fair about the scoring on that, not letting certain officials get away with it because they said that they don't care.
Right. I agree with that. I think we touched on that. I'm gonna pull up that section on rules and mechanics, and we've got, share one more time. So we've got this 15% of our score, and starts with proper pregame procedures, second one, understands and consistently applies NFH rules and mechanics. If they are not 100% compliant with their signals, they can't get a 3 in this category.
Right.
It's a 1 or a 2, and if they have 4 or 5 block charge plays and they're still just punching it, or they're using the fists to signal the block, if they're not stopping the clock on out of bounds and they're just straight pointing, maybe they get a 1, or they can get a 0 in that category too. I think it just depends on the level of their offense, and at a minimum it's a 1-point deduction, but it could be a 2 or a 3-point deduction depending on how overt their disdain for those things are. So does that feel like an adequate description there, Jeff?
Yes, ma'am.
And let me jump in there. That's one of the reasons why we have these meetings every year, so we can try to be consistent. I think it's gotten a lot better over the years since Penny's been in this position of driving the consistency throughout the observer staff. We get far less complaints from officials than we used to on the arbitrary scoring of our paid evaluators. And I think that that's gotten a lot better because of what Penny's done for us. So that's what I wanted to say.
Well, and that's all you guys listening and following through. That's the accountability piece. And the referees, the ones that care enough that are going to watch this, and they're going to hear this talk, and they're going to know that that's the expectation for everyone in this group. we're gonna, we want them being Federation officials if that's what shirt they're wearing that night.
Yeah.
Good points.
So before everybody answer or ask any more questions, I want to thank all of you evaluators. I appreciate what you do for the PNBOA and what you continue to do, and welcoming our new observers to the staff. You guys make a huge difference in our group, and I really appreciate you all. I appreciate what Penny's done to get our program way further down the road than it was before. It's really enhanced having Penny, especially with her new role in the last couple of years of the national coordinator of women's basketball. That adds a ton of credibility to our program, which I really appreciate. Just a little bit of housekeeping. There might be some people on the call or some varsity officials that are going to see this. It says, how the heck can Kelly be an evaluator with Scott still refereeing? So I am not going to get evaluated this year. This is my last year in the PNBOA. Many of you know, Kelly and I are moving to Arizona in the springtime whenever our house gets done. So I will be doing some games this year, but I will not be part of the evaluation process. So it should not be a conflict of interest. So that's, other than the fact that the evaluation manual is almost completed. My committee's been working real hard on getting it updated for this year. We've adjusted a little bit of the observer criteria, the scoring and stuff like that to match closer to what's the average scores that Penny showed earlier have been. So I'll get that out to all of you as soon as we get that finished. So I think that's all I have.
Thank you, Scott, and great meeting everyone. I appreciate you all too, and happy to help wherever I can. Drop me an email, shoot me a text, and I'll do my best to get back to you as quickly as I can.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Penny.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Be good to see everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys. Talk to you later. Bye now.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.